Welcome back to Outside Views, and bro, we need to talk. And today I want to talk about a political strategy that, in my opinion, is a cynical act of national self-sabotage, one that puts power over planet. And I'm talking about the new Brexit, the populist right-wing campaign to turn climate action into the next cultural battleground. I even saw some young guys going into that direction on TikTok. It's a chilling and immediate threat to all of us. When Michael Gove famously proclaimed that the people of the country have had enough of experts, he laid the foundation for the original Brexit. And now, fast forward to today, and we see the same playbook being weaponized against climate science, against international cooperation, and against the very future of the planet. Because who's still denying that there's climate change? I don't know what hit them at the head when they were kids. And Nigel Farage himself has declared net zero to be the new Brexit. And this isn't a coincidence. It's a calculated, desperate political maneuver, and it is a recycling of a failed strategy. And let's be honest about why this is happening. The populist right is in desperate need of a new battle, because the truth about the original Brexit lie is now painfully apparent for all to see. More than 5 years after Britain left the EU, the promised benefits have simply failed to materialize. Instead, the country is saddled with an economy that is an estimated £140 billion smaller. And the reports are clear. A massive 56% of the British public now believe leaving the EU was the wrong decision. The country is left divided and its businesses are less competitive. And in my view, Brexit was a political fraud that has run its course, and its architects are now uncharacteristically quiet about their defining project because they have no defense for the damage it has done. So, they have stepped into the breach with a new, equally corrosive campaign, the war on net zero. Net zero is being cynically framed as the new symbol of bureaucratic overreach, the new face of foreign control, just as the European Union once was. But they can't blame them anymore nowadays. And the strategy to attack climate action is highly manipulative. It deliberately preys on the bloc of voters who rightly feel left behind by the dual processes of deindustrialization and globalization. And the populist right frames net zero as the cause of this industrial decline, completely ignoring the fact that it is a necessity for a modern competitive economy, and part of it is damage done by Brexit. And they are doing this even as the evidence of the climate crisis becomes undeniable. Blazing wildfires across Europe caused around 43 billion euros in damage this summer alone, and droughts in Africa have pushed over 90 million people into extreme hunger. Yet, for many in Britain, the environment now ranks only as the 7th most important issue, and almost a third think too much is spent on climate policies. This political naivete is being actively fostered by populists who are keen to absolve themselves of responsibility. You have figures like Richard Tice of Reform UK now demonizing green energy alternatives, despite his own past claims about the benefits of solar power. And this is not a policy position, it is unadulterated hypocrisy and a grotesque political opportunism. The populist attack on climate action is fundamentally an assault on reality itself, once again. Populism offers simple solutions to complex problems, and there is no problem quite as complex as, guessed it, climate change. Populists have an utter disdain for complexity, which is why they despise experts and academics. I mean, at the Reform UK conference, a climate-denying think tank sponsored an event titled "Is Climate Realism Inevitable?" And that to me is a complete and utter intellectual surrender. It's a declaration of war on science and fact. The core of their anti-climate argument is also deeply disingenuous. They correctly point out that climate change is the most global of global problems, one that requires unprecedented international cooperation. But they then refuse to follow that reality to its logical conclusion. They refuse to admit that solving it requires nations to compromise on their unique interests for the greater good of all. That's, for example, why the German government is not taking everything back that happened towards climate-friendly technologies. We just now in Germany have a different approach with technology openness than just a too narrow line. But they would never turn back time here. But in Britain, to admit that would undermine the nationalist platform on which they stand, the same platform that brought us the disaster of Brexit. And so the populist right chooses instead to undermine the very reality of climate change. And this is not patriotism, it's the clearest example of party over nation, and perhaps the least patriotic act of them all. And the final, most infuriating part of this new battleground is the ultimate irony of the entire campaign. The populist right claims to fight for the economically disadvantaged, for the people worried about the national debt and the cost of living. But their disdain for effective climate action will only worsen every single one of these problems. A failure to deal with the climate crisis is not just morally reprehensible, it's economically illiterate. The Office for Budget Responsibility warns that the fiscal impacts of climate change could drive UK government debt about 270% of GDP by the 2070s. Billions of pounds in relief funds for increased flooding and damage to national infrastructure will only worsen the national debt. And of course, climate change is predicted to cause the greatest human migration crisis in history, a crisis that will obliterate their anti-immigration platform. This new Brexit is not a solution to anything. It is a deepening of the original mistake, a more dangerous distraction that risks the future of the planet for short-term political power. And the tragedy is that the same populist forces that plunged Britain into economic chaos with Brexit are now attempting to do the same on an existential scale. So thanks for joining me today on Outside Views, and I'm really looking forward to your comments here. And as always, stay civil, guys. You can have very differing opinions, but stay civil. And if you want to see another video right now, the next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.